This is the new Mercedes S-Class. This is also the new Mercedes S-Class. And what we have here is a battle of the powertrains. On my left, the Mercedes S350 diesel, actually the entry-level version of the S-Class, available from just under £80,000 with an inline 6-cylinder diesel engine and CO2 emissions of 190 grams per kilometre. On my right, at the other end of the range, you have the S580e plug-in hybrid, also complete with an inline 6-cylinder petrol engine, but also complete with a lithium-ion battery to give it a pure electric range of up to 63 miles and CO2 emissions of as low as 18 grams per kilometre. But prices start at £105,000. Let's get something straight. The plug-in hybrid S580e is only available in high-spec trims and with a long wheelbase for maximum chauffeur appeal. So, for a comparable test with the diesel, you have to look to the long wheelbase S350dl in AMG line premium, which costs some £94,000 and up on the road. While here we have the next highest trim up, the Premium Plus, which costs just over £100,000. This does come with a caveat because the official government figures that you get on plug-in hybrids, the WLTP lab test that they do to get emission figures, well, they always really flatter plug-in hybrids because they obviously test it with the combined electric and petrol running. So in this case, in the Mercedes case, you get an official MPG of 353 mpg, which is pretty crazy, and you're not going to achieve that unless you've got the car plugged in and running on pure electric pretty much all the time, which you may well do. But honestly, the best way to figure out whether you're going to benefit from this powertrain is to figure out if you're going to cover most of your journeys on electric running and then look at what sort of efficiency you're going to get when that petrol engine is on the go. Of course, with the diesel, it's a simpler thing. You just look at what the real world economy is and figure out whether that's going to suit you. So we're going to talk about the real world range and economy of both of these cars a bit later in the video. Before we do that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and turn on your notifications because we've got loads of great videos coming up and we don't want you to miss any. As for practicality, well, the Mercedes S-Class is of course a saloon, but the boot opening is fairly large despite that, and you get a really deep load bay that will take a couple of large suitcases with ease in the diesel. The plug-in hybrid, however, does lose over 200 litres of the standard car's 540 litres of boot space, and that really shows in the depth of the boot. So you do definitely sacrifice quite a lot of the carrying capacity for the plug-in hybrid's batteries. It doesn't get much better for rear passenger space than in the back of a Mercedes S-Class, particularly if you've got the long wheelbase car, as both of our test cars here are, so you get an extra 110mm of space. And I would add that the plug-in hybrid and the diesel car both have exactly the same rear seat accommodation. And that includes two lovely, really comfortable seats, masses of elbow room as well. You can get a third person in the middle, that's the standard rear seat layout, but it's not going to be that comfortable, is it? And I mean, who wants three people in the back of an S-Class? You also get standard climate control in the back, two-zone climate control, which is all very nice. Most people who are going to spec a long wheelbase S-Class are also going to spec the executive line pack, which is, you know, nearly £3,700, but it does come with this tablet amongst various other things, which gives you your comfort, your seat, your ambient lighting. It's also got your media on there, so that's a really clever feature. You really just can't argue with the back seats in an S-Class. They really are fabulous. You also get a footrest and you get your blinds in the back for the full sort of VIP chauffeur spec car. It is just spectacularly comfortable back here, I have to say. And yeah, so no quibbles here at all. As for equipment in the Mercedes S-Class AMG line premium trim, it is suitably lavish, with big wheels, digital matrix LED lights, keyless entry and soft closed doors, panoramic sliding sunroof, and that proudly upright three-pointed star on the bonnet, which is quite rare these days on most modern Mercedes. Not only that, but you also get, well, pretty much everything else you would expect in a Mercedes S-Class, not least this fabulous ambient lighting, which isn't only sort of variable colours, but it also shows you, it reacts to lane keep assist, it reacts to the climate control, it reacts to all kinds of stuff. It's really clever. Everything about the S-Class does feel just as classy as you'd expect. If I'm really looking for things to sort of niggle about, the seat controls in the S-Class. Now, Mercedes have had their seat controls for their electric seats on the door for decades now, but they have now decided to make them touch sensitive. Now, I don't mind touch sensitive buttons where they work well. Here, this feels like change for the sake of change, because actually it's quite a lot less intuitive than the old sliding buttons than they had. It can be quite hard to figure out what bit you're adjusting. It's a really minor thing, but it actually really annoys me, and it annoys me that you have to go into this big screen in the centre to get to your lumbar adjustment. That also seems kind of unnecessary, really. Granted, there's masses of adjustment, but it's still just an awkward way of doing it. So there you go. The S-Class is a fabulous driving position. You can get pretty much any position you want, and it will, of course, be more than good enough for even the tallest of drivers. On top of that, you get the fabulous Burmester sound system, which really is incredible. And you know, if you go for the top spec car that we've got here, then you even get heated armrest on the door and here, not to mention, of course, heated steering wheel, heated seat, massage seats. It really does have everything you would expect and more. You also get these two enormous digital screens in the S-Class, including the variable driver's readout for the driver behind the wheel and this huge central touchscreen. If you've got the augmented reality head-up display that's standard on the top spec trim, then you can also control that in this screen using the touchpad on the wheel. A fingerprint recognition pad on the centre console lets you set up different profiles that save driving position and infotainment settings, and while we'd like it to wake up a bit quicker in the morning, it does work really well. The touchscreen graphics are second to none, and it's reasonably easy to find the function that you're after via the pop-up home menu, where you can hop between nav with live charger search function for the plug-in hybrid model, music streaming, wireless CarPlay or Android Auto and more. I'd also add that this is the only touch-sensitive steering wheel that I've encountered that I actually quite like and that doesn't seem to get activated by accident. So that is the interior stuff then. But what about driving? Well, here we are in the S350d. Now, I reckon if you were being a bit cynical, you probably could call this the poor man's S-Class, because the 350d is the entry-level model. I know that the plug-in hybrid is a lot quicker. We'll get to that in a minute when I drive that. But it's hard to think, driving this, that you really need anything more, or really even want anything more. So this is an inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel, 282 brake horsepower, 0 to 62 in 6.4 seconds. And the thing is about the S-Class, this is what always seems to just kind of like inch it ahead, even of cars like the BMW 7 Series, the Audi A8, which have got so much better over the years as well. They really are, you know, virtually on a par with the S-Class in so many ways. But the S-Class has always had the edge in the way it handles, and I would say that is still the case. So you get all-round air suspension as standard, and it works really, really well, even on this diesel, which has got 21-inch alloys on this car. It's just such poise to the S-Class. It's always perfected that kind of silky smoothness with being also actually quite entertaining to drive on a good road. It's not a sports car. It's, you know, it's a more than 5 metre long limo, but it's still actually controls its body really nicely. It turns into corners really nicely. This is rear-wheel drive. You can't get four-wheel drive on the S350d or on the plug-in hybrid, which I find quite surprising. You have to go for the S400 or the S500, which are the sort of mid-range models. So that, I have to say, is a bit of a black mark against it, because I think a lot of people do want four-wheel drive these days. Having said that, I've had absolutely no issues with the traction. I think it would be good for Mercedes to offer that, but I don't think you're going to miss it if you do have this rear-wheel drive model. And I don't think you're going to miss not having more performance, because it is really good. It's a 9-speed automatic gearbox, responds really nice and smoothly, nice and quickly. It's got masses of mid-range, sort of, you know, real good kind of a kick to the mid-range. It's just kind of everything you would want from a limo. And I have to say, despite all of that, you know, being quite entertaining on a good road, more so than you would really ever expect of a 2-ton, more than 5 metre long limo, it is also the perfect chauffeur car. So the throttle response, even in sport mode actually, it's quite gentle. So it's very easy to kind of get that sublime, really silky kind of acceleration, sort of gentle sort of wafting that you expect from the ultimate chauffeur's car. Everything about it, even the brake feel, is really easy to modulate. I would add that you've got all of those semi-adaptive driver systems that you would expect, your adaptive cruise control, your lane keep assist, all of that stuff as standard, of course. But it's not just about that, because the S-Class is really good at offering all these little tech details. So if you've added the augmented reality navigation system, which I have to say I think is worth having, get really clever, neat tricks that do make life a lot easier. I have to say, especially if you're around a city, as it comes up with moving arrows on the head-up display and on the screen to show you the road that you need to turn down. Not only that, but when you pull up to traffic lights, it comes up on the system with a camera view of the traffic lights, so in case you might be struggling to see whether it's a red or green light, if the traffic light's quite high up, that kind of thing. All of these sort of little details with that sort of tech system make a big difference if you are a chauffeur in and around London. That sort of stuff, really good. So it's not just about those semi-autonomous driver aids, which we've become quite used to on high-end cars these days, I think. It's about having all of those extra little bits that just really kind of set this apart, I think. As for the economy of the S350d, well, we've seen around about 38 mpg in real-world use, which would work out at around about 19 pence per mile for fuel going by diesel prices in the UK as of spring 2022. Now onto the plug-in hybrid, which you will need to plug in as often as possible if you're to benefit from the electric running. The Type 2 and CCS sockets mean that the S-Class is compatible with the vast majority of public chargers, and it also comes with 60 kilowatt rapid charging, a rarity on plug-in hybrids, which can deliver an 80% charge in around about 20 minutes. Plug into a standard 7 kilowatt home wall box and you'll have a full battery in around about 5 hours. But enough about efficiency. There is another reason that you might go for the S580e that I've got here, and that is performance. Because this thing has got 510 brake horsepower, which is more than you get in most of its rivals. And it does 0 to 62 in 4.5 seconds, despite being a car that weighs, well, near enough 2.4 tonnes. It's crazy. It's just the performance in this thing. You can go full, like, Ronin car chase sort of special if you want to. It has got that side to it. It's got a real performance edge to it, this car, which is remarkable for something that's this enormous and obviously still this kind of like limo oriented. I'd say that that's the thing that you take away from the S580 is it does feel like it's a lot of cars in one. So obviously you can just stick it in your standard hybrid mode and it does its own thing. If you've got the route in the nav, then the car will decide how best to use the electric and the petrol running to get the best efficiency as well. Or you can charge the electric battery with the petrol engine, and you can hold the battery charge as well. You've got all of those functions as you would expect. But obviously it's got a much longer range than most of its rivals, and not only that, I'd say it's still the better handling car. In fact, compared to the diesel S-Class, it's funny because the plug-in hybrid, this comes on 20-inch wheels rather than the 21s that you get the diesel on in these high-spec trims. And I think that makes a difference because I think this actually rides slightly better, especially over really high frequency stuff. So when you run over a few cat's eyes in the middle of the road, the S580e, because it's on slightly smaller wheels and bit fatter sidewalls on the tyres, makes a difference. So I would definitely go for 20-inch wheels on your S-Class, regardless of which powertrain you're looking at. And I'd say the body control actually is slightly better in the S580, I think because it's got more weight to be controlling. You would think that might be sort of reflect badly, but this is definitely, it's fractional. You sort of need to drive them back to back to pick it up, but this is slightly the better handling car and the better riding car. When it comes to real-world range, the S580e plug-in hybrid manages around about 50 miles to a charge in varied driving, including a fair bit of about-town stuff and some motorway miles. We'd expect that to go up to around about 55 to even 60 miles in summer, given that batteries do deliver better range in warm weather. If you're charging at home on a domestic electricity tariff of 19 pence per kilowatt hour, that works out at 9 pence per mile on electric running, while the 28 mpg that we returned from the petrol engine suggests a cost of around about 25 pence per mile when you're out of battery charge. While that'll make the fuel cost on the plug-in hybrid far cheaper than on the diesel if you plug in regularly enough, you will still need to do a fair amount of mileage to make up for the difference in price, or in lease costs, since the diesel will cost around £1,100 per month on a business lease with a 15,000 mile allowance, while the plug-in hybrid costs more like £1,400 per month. I think you're looking at Rolls-Royces to get better refinement than this in electric mode. It really is absolutely spectacular. You've got your, insulated glazed windows, you've got sublime powertrain refinement. It's just absolutely perfect. And the throttle response, as with the diesel, really nice and slow and progressive, so you get that absolutely effortless kind of sort of chauffeur progress that you expect. It's funny that about chauffeur cars, isn't it? That you don't generally actually want them to be quick anyway, you just want them to be super smooth. And the S-Class does that effortlessly, and the F580 does both effortlessly. I just really love it. It's such a lovely car to drive. I need to make a decision as to which of these two, the diesel or the plug-in hybrid, is best. And that's tricky because I think the S580 is the better of the two to drive in a few fairly marginal respects. So I would say if you do spend a lot of time in a city, in some slightly awkward sort of roads or car parks and this kind of thing, and you're a chauffeur in those circumstances, then I think probably the plug-in hybrid is going to be worth it despite that jump in price, because the extra refinement, the savings you might potentially make on zero emission zones and this kind of thing, I think that's significant enough. So don't get me wrong, I think the plug-in hybrid is spectacular on every front and worth the money. But that diesel, it's really good, isn't it, the diesel? And yet it's a lot cheaper. And I think unless you are in a city centre the majority of the time, well, I think the efficiency you get in the diesel is going to be good enough for this car. And I think the pricing is substantially better. Even the leasing, when I looked at that, there's some £300 difference between the diesel and the plug-in hybrid. And that does make it, it's a big chunk of money. And so there you have it. I mean, I do think the plug-in hybrid is absolutely gobsmackingly brilliant. But for the money, well, I think I'd give this one to the diesel. Don't forget to head to CarGurus UK for loads of fantastic used cars, and of course remember to like the video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of our videos.